please. Microphones.
Microphone.
There we go.
That's right.
That damn blank number. All right, the time is 6:07, May 22nd. Charter Review Committee call to order. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bond?
Here.
Ms. Byrd?
Here.
Mrs. Duff?
Here.
Mr. Rodehaver?
Here.
Ms. Steele?
Here.
Mr. Stevenson?
Here.
Mrs. Watts? Ms. Worley? Mr. Watts?
Here, I think. Anybody have anything from the last meeting they'd like to talk about real quick before we move on and see what's up?
No, sir.
Anybody? I have been made aware that the law director has had quite a busy last few weeks and was unable to address any of the charter amendments that we sent up to her to look at for direction. So unfortunately, those items, which were 80%, if not a little more, of what we're actually waiting for to talk about to finish up, she's not able to give us her judgments on, so we may need to look at other things here tonight if there's any other things we want to look at and address. Go for it. Bring it up.
So we currently have a list of items, sent to Miss Amy, and the first item is 3.6, which covers travel expense reporting and reimbursement requirements. And according to what this states, it says timing on travel expenses make it difficult for January travel. So is there any way you can expand that? And
I think before we do that, let's go ahead and let's read ordinance. If everybody wants to take your books, if you have your books with you, section 3.6. Let's read the current, let's read the way the current charter states, and then we'll address the question.
I can go ahead and read that.
Go ahead.
Section 3.6, travel expense reporting and reimbursement requirements. The mayor and members of council shall receive reasonable reimbursement for expenses incurred in the performance of their official duties. Reasonable and necessary expenses include expenses actually incurred and paid by members of council or the mayor while performing those duties. Attendance at conferences and meetings outside Montgomery County, Ohio, shall be authorized by resolution stating the exact purpose thereof. Expenses for attendance at conferences, meetings, or other travel outside of Montgomery County occurring between November 10th and December 31st will not be reimbursed or advanced to the mayor or members of council whose term of office is ending and who will not be commencing a new term of office on the next first business day in January. Members of council and the mayor shall by ordinance provide for the filing of expense reports, which must include a detailed listing of costs with receipts attached. The receipt requirement, however, does not apply to the use of standardized per diem amounts to cover meals and other incidental expenses. An expense report must be filed with the Director of Finance within 10 business days after the performance of their official duty. Said ordinance shall further provide that any unused funds advanced by the city for expenses must be accounted for and repaid within said 10 business day period. If a member of council or the mayor fails to file an expense report or fails to repay advance funds within said 10 days, 10 business day period, the travel privileges of that council member or mayor shall immediately be suspended, and the advance funds will be recovered through garnishment of said member of council's or mayor's salary until the advance funds are repaid. I need a drink after that.
Now regarding the question, timing on travel expenses make it difficult for January travel. The only thing that this chapter states for January would be for outgoing council members that did not get reelected. Am I reading that correctly? Well, if you're an outgoing council member and you decide to take a city trip December the 1st, you're obviously not going to be doing it in the benefit of the city. And I believe that is the heart of what that statement was intended to be for.
In other words, they shouldn't even be going.
They should not be going. If you want to know the truth, if they didn't get elected, the new council person or mayor-elect should be taking that trip.
Mm-hmm.
But they can't until the following year because they're not an elected official yet. But I don't believe that. Let's say December 1st. Let's say December 1st, council has a retreat to go do something or go to Washington, for a thing. I don't think that council person needs to go.
I agree.
That's the heart of what I would assume that this means. I believe this was from Aaron Vitor. He says that timing in January, it makes it difficult in January. Unless I'm not seeing something here.
Originally, in the past few years, there is a blanket resolution every year allowing council and mayor to travel. It specifically where it talks about stating the exact purpose thereof, it specifically lists the mayors and managers meetings, the OML meetings, anything outside of Montgomery County. The past few years, that resolution has been done in January as opposed to it needs to be on the November meeting for approval in December in anticipation of January. My question would be, it doesn't spell that out here. It doesn't say, it must be passed in December for it to take effect in January. I believe when I started, it was going back previous years, it was like it was done in January, and I was just carrying over what had been done as past practice. So I don't know as far as timing what he means other than just that part of it, when the actual resolution is passed.
There just doesn't seem to be enough information of what he's requiring or
Right.
what he's asking of.
I mean, it doesn't even spell it out in the charter, one way or the other, so.
Let's say this. Who's in charge of agenda items on council's agenda?
City manager, law director, department heads,
And council itself.
yes.
So they're in charge of taking care of what items on the agenda need to go into play so that the future is covered.
Yes, yeah. But items like the travel one is just like a housekeeping item that's done every year. So this past year and the year before, and I think the year before that, it's been passed in January. There was an opportunity for the mayor to go somewhere this past January that she wasn't able to attend because the resolution wasn't passed. So So.
But why wasn't it passed?
Well, it might have been on me because it was a housekeeping item that was previously done in January at the beginning of the year. So I don't know if previously there weren't items that came up in January. It was just something that I had done as a housekeeping item carried over previously.
Okay, the first meeting in January, we passed the travel resolution. VL has this big thing in New York, right around noon, right after a meeting. And so Terry could not go, she wanted to pay for it out of her own pocket, and we said, she was advised not to do that. So she therefore could not go because we hadn't voted on the resolution. So I think that's the whole thing that we wanted approved, and we want to vote on it in December. So since the charter's got set up, the way it is, that we vote the first meeting in January, the charter has to be changed.
It doesn't specify. It doesn't specify either way, as far as it needing to be passed in January. It needs to say it needs to be passed in December, because it doesn't say, it doesn't specify either way.
But it is December 31st. That's what I'm saying. So it's not effective till we vote again in January. At that first
But the first meeting in January isn't until the second week of January. So I would think anything that you did, because then your meeting that you had the first week of, or second week of January, the past calendar year, should carry over to the first 2 weeks of that calendar year. Well, then you've got a dead 2 weeks. So the city should shut down for 2 weeks because we've got nothing going on.
For some reason, again, that particular item is December 31st.
It's not on here as ending at December 31st. The only thing it says on December 31st, let's read that section again. Expenses, say the damn blame word. Expenses for attendance at conferences, meetings, or other travels outside of Montgomery counties occurring between November 10th and December 31st will not be reimbursed or advanced to the mayor or members of council whose terms of office end. What, if your term didn't end, why isn't it being carried over?
Because it says November to December 31st.
To council members whose terms end.
Well, Martina checked into it, she said Terry absolutely would not be under the umbrella of reimbursed.
Well, that's not what that's saying at all. That's not what that's saying at all.
According to the law director,
Well, the law director's not reading the same piece of information I got, and this is black and white, and it's pretty simple to me to read that if as long as it's a council member that their term is not ending,
Right.
no, when we vote that meeting in January, it goes from January, well, it goes from that meeting to December. I mean, that's the way we've always done
That's wrong.
that's not the way it's reading
Yeah,
at all.
They've been doing it wrong.
It's not reading. Do you have a book?
it. I don't,
Mr. Chairman, may I make a point?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so where Tommy had stopped, it continues on.
I think somebody reread that.
So I'm gonna reread it, if I may.
The whole thing?
No, not the whole thing. Relax, son. Expenses for attendance at conference, meetings, or other travel outside of Montgomery County occurring between November 10th and December 31st will not be reimbursed or advanced to the mayor or members of council whose term of office is ending and who will not be commencing a new term of office on the next first business day in January.
See, the first day of January.
See, so for me to read that the way I'm reading that, for Terry this year not to be allowed to go to that, Martina's not reading that in the heart that it's wrote, because her term continued into this calendar year.
Right.
it did, but the out in November or chose not to run, their term goes to December 31st.
Right, theirs, they can't get repaid.
No, but,
Right.
so that's why that's the way we interpret it. And Martina, because she looked at it very carefully, and she's going out the law degree. And
Well-
she said no.
Well, I don't think the spirit, I don't think Martina, I'm not questioning her ability to understand law, but as just a normal lay person, I don't think she's reading it to the spirit that it was wrote. It's not wrote to hammerlock, council members that are still on board. It's to hammerlock those council members that have not been reelected and trying to take a free trip the last 2 months of the year in their term. That's what it's wrote for.
I think the original point that he was trying to make was that since we have been doing those resolutions in January, if there could just be language in there somewhere that that legislation needs to be passed in December to allow for the full year of travel.
But like you said earlier, that to me becomes a housekeeping item.
Correct.
That council needs to address for themselves earlier in the year. Nothing that needs to be done in the charter.
Well, the sentence that you're reading about with the dates in it, to me, that reads just for the ones who are leaving office.
Right.
Yeah,
That's how I take
that's the other dates, there's no other dates in there.
No.
Within that whole section. So I think just the idea of inserting that type of language, I don't know if that was his intent or not.
Well, I know that every year since I've been on council, Tommy probably, when you were the first meeting in January, that second week, we always approved the travel for the year through December 31st. That's, I believe that's exactly.
Well, then I think the wordage needs to change then on council's side, okay? That
Resolution.
you've got a 2-week period there that's being darkened, okay? So council in their legislation needs to extend it instead of January or December 31st, which there is nothing right now other than what council thinks. That's not in here for that. But council needs to extend that until the second week of January.
Well, but in the same spirit, when you read that, that means that all other council members are paid through December 31st.
I don't see that at all.
Well, that's the way we've always interpreted. As of December 31st, our
Well-
ability to travel ends until we have that second week, our first meeting in January. the second week.
I agree with that, but I don't know how this would be a charter issue.
I'll just add that since this happened with the mayor in January, she asked me to make sure that that legislation was put on the committee of the whole in November, at our November meeting for discussion, for approval for legislation for the December meeting, in anticipation of 2024, yeah, 2024.
And that's legislation that would be passed by council.
Correct.
Well-
Is that something that needs to be spelled out in the charter?
Well, okay, then what I'm saying is then in the charter, the 1 year business done by the city needs to extend from the first meeting of 2023 until the first meeting of 2024, not December 31st. That's an easy fix. Because by saying December 31st, and then you're going to the second week of January, you've got a 2-week dead period of black in the city, which, that's silly. That's silly. So a calendar year for the city staff or the city council should be from first meeting, January, whatever, the first meeting in January until the first meeting in January.
Of the following year, yeah.
Right.
Maybe we need to stipulate that a calendar year is that.
For council travel, yeah.
I mean,
I mean, what I could do, I could get the legislation that was passed and have you take a look at the language of the legislation that was passed, if you'd like to do that.
I would like to see that,
Okay.
and then that way we can kind of wrap our heads around it. and figure out
Finance it.
how it definitely needs to be worded and the language that needs to be removed or replaced in this portion of the charter.
It may be a whole nother section, like this turn into section 3.6A and then a 3.6B. You know, all business of the council dealing with travel expenditures have to be from meeting to meeting.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
it was never a problem to PL invited them to New York, that big New
It's
Year's.
never been thought of before.
So the first 2 weeks of January, typically, we do nothing. We have our organization meeting, nobody travels, then we have a second meeting, everything's taxed. So it's never come up, never been a problem until this past year.
And as Fuyao being one of the largest companies in the city of Moraine, and they are a huge supporter, then yes, we definitely need to make sure that we're represented there, obviously. So, yeah, I would, okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Was she getting the legislation? Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Well, that's painful.
I agree. Your guys' thoughts on this, anybody?
I have no interest in going to New York. That's my point right there.
Does
I'm right
anybody,
there
does
with you
anybody see
myself.
anything different here that I'm not seeing? I mean,
No,
Like I said,
No.
you should go from January 1st.
first meeting.
yeah,
Instead of breaking it for the 2 weeks, I understand that,
Yeah.
yeah. They let it continue, go from 1 year to 1 year.
Yeah. It would be not a calendar year, but a functioning year.
Right.
I know for the military, our fiscal year was, I think it ran from October to October. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be January 1 to January 1, or January 1 to December 31st,
Mine is January 15th to January 15th.
because what they're not accounting for is leap years and all that other
Yeah.
stuff. So if you have it from the first meeting in January in that year to the following year on the first meeting, it just makes better sense.
Yeah.
Man, that was quick.
she's
I almost flipped
she's like the,
You were on it.
she's
Thank
like
you.
Flash.
Thank you. This is the legislation.
You want me to read it?
Yep.
Record of resolution number 7912-23, passed January 26, 2023. Resolution approving out-of-county conferences and seminars for council members of the city of Moraine to attend during the year 2023. Pardon me. Now therefore, be it ordained by the council of the city of Moraine, state of Ohio, section 1, for the calendar year 2023, the following conferences, seminars, and meetings are approved for attendance by applicable members of the Moraine City Council. Ohio Municipal League, Mayor's Court Training, Mayors and Managers Association, monthly meetings occasionally held outside Montgomery County. Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission, monthly meetings occasionally held outside of Montgomery County. National League of Cities Conference, 7 members, date and location to be determined. Section 2, that the clerk be and is hereby authorized and directed to forward a certified copy of this resolution to the city manager and finance director. Section 3, that this resolution shall take effect and be in full force from and after the date of this passage. And it is signed by Mayor Terry Murphy, Law Director, and Clerk of Council, Miss Amy Brown.
I can see very clearly then, part of the problem part of the problem is at the beginning of the year, you designated 4 out-of-town meetings. That is what the resolution covered, that is what the resolution intended to cover, and no more meetings than that. To add a meeting, yeah, you got blackballed. You couldn't go to that meeting because it wasn't on the original legislation to go to it. Not the timing of it, but the original legislation to go to it.
May I ask, Ms. Witt, so these are meetings and agenda items that need to be attended to, obviously. So with Booyah, that is an invited thing. It's not necessarily a meeting or an agenda item.
It has nothing to do with the city except moving.
Right.
I would like to state that, all members of council have voted for the last 2 years not to attend National League of Cities, thereby saving the city close to $40,000, right? So we do try to conserve.
That's very commendable and appreciated, by the citizens. But when you make legislation designating which meetings you are going to be able to go to and be paid for, and then try to go to another, that's going to be blackballed, and that's what Martina kicked out because of this legislation right here.
Yep.
Not the charter.
So the heart of this is still intact. What needs to happen, if you guys are going to designate what meetings you go to, you're going to have to say the FUIAL conference in New York, or you're not going to, probably the best thing to do is not designate which ones of these you're going to go to. We just have an open expenditure for city expenses. When you do this, you are the ones that are hammerlocking yourself.
Well, and that may be an invited thing, they may not even be invited next year, the chairman may not come back,
See?
so.
But I mean, but not just FUIAL. By you guys doing it like this, you can't go anywhere else. If when Nelson Corporation decides to send you to Nashville, Tennessee to watch them make their water heaters, you guys can't go to that either because it's not on that list.
We've never needed anything other than that, that's why it's still on.
But what I'm saying is you guys don't need to do this. You guys need to have an open-ended expenditure for city trips that you have known and unknown. There's nothing in that about that.
Well, you also should remember why it is closed like that, because at one time there was a council that Christmas shopping, they did a whole lot of things on city money.
Oh, yeah.
They use city credit cards, we don't do that, our credit cards are locked up and saved in the finance director's department. None of us want a city credit card, so all our cards are locked up.
Well, see, I don't think, go ahead.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
Well, from the way you're describing it, it seems to be more of a legislation change and adjustment as opposed to something that needs to be added to the charter,
Or rewritten.
or rewritten, or amended, or,
I agree.
I think so.
okay.
I think the whole thing right there has to be, first, this wasn't passed until January 26th. That's the second meeting in January, not the first.
Correct,
It had to be on the calendar, first meeting had to be voted on.
yes.
Yeah.
You can't vote on anything first.
So that's why with this year, the mayor asked if it could be done, the Cal meeting in November to pass or to be, voted on at the meeting in December for January 2024 travel through December 2024 travel for the full year. I mean, that's what this says during the year 2023. But anything that came up before January 26th,
Right.
they were out of luck.
Or anything that wasn't on that list of agreed upon travel expenditures.
Right.
So it's, so with this legislation, it doesn't cover anything as far as and I don't want to use the wrong words for this, an invited vacation of sorts. I know it's goodwill from the city towards Fuyao.
Call it PR.
It's a PR trip. It's not necessarily a conference or anything that necessarily directly or would adversely affect the city other than, well, why didn't they show up?
And as a taxpayer, I'm not sure I would want a council approval to go to open houses and whatever in Nashville. I mean, that to me would just be, I think that would be a little too much, and there may be a council down the road. that
You're
would
right.
take advantage of that.
Well,
I agree.
I think we would have Ohio state law that's gonna step in and supersede that. In the first place, ethics violations and all of that kind of stuff, would fall into play there.
And this very well, because when you said go to Nashville for water heater, I'm thinking, I would never.
Well, I'm just saying, here we have, in all seriousness, we have Wynn Nelson Corporation. Their headquarters is in Moraine. They just got done building a $3.5 million facility over here to sell product out of, and they're about to open up and build another electrical supply dealership just next to that building. They are the second largest supply house of building materials in the nation. There is a possibility that they would want the city of Moraine council members or a PR thing to go to one of their facilities and see how things are ran, things are operated, how their tax dollars given to them or their tax dollars given to them is being utilized, whatever. I could see that happening. That's the same way Fuyao is doing. Fuyao's basically going there saying, we want you to come, be our guest, see how we operate with things. You go back to your city and then tell your city that. I can see that happening, and it's a public relations thing that the city does need to do,
But it has nothing to do
with
with
section
anything
3.6.
in the charter, and it doesn't, the legislation doesn't reflect anything for the charter. It's, as Ms. Brown said, it is it's a legislation thing. So, I would like to, table this, or make a motion to table this, and, until maybe something else comes up, or, there's more clarification, or we can get more clarification, big boy word, from Martina on it, but I don't see any reason to proceed any further with this.
Second it.
So do we want a question then for Martina? Martina, is this an item that would need a separate line item in the codified ordinances? Or is this just a housekeeping thing? Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay?
That'll be fine.
Next.
All right. Section 4.4, posting in 3 locations is not practical anymore. Same with 4.5 and 5.4C. 4.4 reads, procedure of passage of ordinances. Every ordinance shall be introduced in written form. A complete text shall be published by posting in not less than 3 of the most public places in the city to be determined by the council and on the city's website, with a notation as to the time and place of its first reading. A summary of the action taken by the ordinance shall be read as a first reading. The notice, God, a lot of feedback on that
Wow,
mic,
wow.
sorry. The notice of second reading and consideration for final adoption of the ordinance shall be published by posting as above, set forth with the complete text of the ordinance attached, and shall contain the time and place of its consideration for final adoption. Publication and by posting shall be at least 1 week prior to the time set forth in the summary of the ordinance. 4.5, second reading. Section 4.5, second reading. For the second reading, at the time and place so published by posting, such ordinance shall be read by title only. All interested persons shall be given an opportunity to be heard prior to the final vote. After such reading, the council may finally adopt such ordinance, except if an amendment changes it in substance. That doesn't make sense right there.
Read it again. Except if, read it again.
Except if an amendment changes it in substance. Okay,
You got it?
yeah,
Okay.
it clicked. When an ordinance is amended, it shall not be finally adopted until a summary of the amended section is published by posting in not less than 3 of the most public places in the city as determined by the council and on the City of Moraine website, together with the time and place when and where such amended ordinance will be further considered. Publication by posting shall be at least 1 week prior to the date set forth in the summary of the ordinance. Moving forward to 5.4, 5.4C. 5.4 reads capital program. 5.4C reads posting the capital program and revisions thereto shall be published by posting in not less than 3 of the most public places in the city as determined by the council and on the City of Moraine website. The above information may be revised and extended each year with regard to capital improvements still pending, blah, blah, blah. So, I was at the Payne Rec Center today and I didn't know this. And I looked on the wall and there is a copy of ordinances. There is a copy of the ordinances and everything else because it has to be made public knowledge. What I don't understand is why Mr. Veeder is wanting to change does he want more? Does he want less?
Well, in his question, posting in 3 locations is not practical anymore. Why?
I think it is.
What I would say, and I haven't talked there, but, no one there, with him being social media, he's probably thinking the website, and things like that.
No,
You have
I'm not
to-
on the web.
Well, you have to remember, a lot of seniors are not on social.
Exactly.
True.
It's true.
So,
So we've got a lot of seniors that go to the rec and walk.
yep,
And they're not on social media, so they would not see the City of Moraine website. But I would say that's what they're expecting.
the last,
Everybody has their phone, everybody has, internet,
no,
but not everybody does,
No.
especially seniors.
I disagree with having less because as Ms. Witt said, you know, you got seniors that happens over at the Gerhardt Center. It needs to be posted in a public place that if somebody needs to, if somebody questions an ordinance or whatever, they can go to those public places that are provided by the city, including the Payne Center, and they can look at it in black and white, right there on a piece of paper. If you get on the website the last link that I seen where they were hauling trash through the city and they could make a complaint, I reposted that, and everybody that responded said the link was broken, they couldn't fill it out.
Here's, I'm talking way too much tonight. Here's my problem with changing it from 3 locations. The spirit of the ordinance required the city to post changes to the city in 3 public places. When this was wrote, 3 public places did not include the internet. Okay? The internet has came into being in the last 20 years. So we're only publicizing this in the public places. This says places, including the web. But we only publicize it here at the city building and at the Payne Rec Center. Used to, it was at the, it was
Where? I'm
here
sorry.
and
Oh,
the
yeah.
Civic Center.
Civic Center.
Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
That's where our citizens go. That's where if they happen to look at something hanging on the wall, hey, that's involving me. I need to go to the next council meeting. They do.
Yeah.
I don't know where practical anymore. I don't know where practical anymore comment comes from. Because to me, that's about as fundamental a thing with the city that we have always had and should always maintain. Go ahead.
And I wonder if the sunshine law, and Amy may know, if the sunshine law requires it to be posted in 3 public places.
According to state law, it very well could.
Yeah, I think some of that has evolved over time as far as allowing websites, allowing, media publications, but this is, I think Shirley is right, specifically the electronic, he's tech savvy. I'm old, I like the paper.
Yes.
When Dave said, oh, it was posted, I'm like, yes, because you'll see on the piece of legislation that I gave you, the clerk is authorized and directed to forward a copy to the city manager and finance director. So when this is passed, I made 4 copies of this. Okay, this was my copy. It goes into my book in my office so that if anybody comes to the city building requesting it, here you go. 2 copies are for the Civic Center and the Rec Center, and the other 2 copies went to the city manager and finance director. So I think his thinking is streamlining the process where I can just email the copy
No.
to so I'm not in favor of that.
I'm not either.
I like the paper, but that's me. I know.
Why is this a problem to him? I'm just asking. I don't have any idea. I like reading things too. I
I
totally
don't know.
agree.
Social media, and he does.
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't want to do his job.
No, I meant maybe he just feels
No,
it's so many places that doesn't need to be, I don't know, he's trying to.
It might be some of that. I mean, it does get posted on the site and electronically, but yeah, I'm good with
He's
mine.
thinking younger generation, not.
That I think that's what it is.
He's reading it.
Where
I
Most of
would,
the time.
Yeah, well, that-
I'm sorry.
I like the paper.
I would like to make a motion then that we strike this and keep the charter as is for the posting in the 3 locations.
I agree.
Yeah.
3 locations and the web.
Yes.
Yes.
Three locations.
And the
Yes.
web.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree.
let me amend that motion. I'd like to make a motion to keep the 3 locations as 2 public places and the web site for the city of Moraine, and keep those
3 locations.
3 locations.
3 locations,
Okay.
and the web.
including the web,
Yes.
in place. That's my motion. I'm sticking to it.
Motion's been made to maintain section 4.4 as read. Second,
Second.
roll call.
Mr.
I should
Stevens?
say 4.4, 4.5.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And
And 5.4C.
Yeah.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Ms. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Rodehaver?
Yes.
Mrs. Duff?
Yes,
Ms. Byrd?
Yes.
Mrs. Bond?
Yes.
Mr. Watts?
Yes.
Moving forward, 10.5, number of members on charter review might need to be trimmed. So 10.5 reads, amendment. This charter may be amended as provided in the Constitution of the State of Ohio, that is, by action of the voters of the city. The proposed amendment to be submitted to the voters either by A, concurrence of 2/3 of members of council, or B, petition of 10% of the electors of the city. Charter Review Commission at the first meeting of the council in January 1973 and every 5 years thereafter. Council shall appoint a charter review commission of not less than 9 electors of the city who serve without compensation. It shall be the duty of the commission to review the existing charter and make recommendations as it may see fit for revision. The commission will submit a report to council not later than August 1st of the same year. Thereupon, council may take such action as it deems warranted with respect to such recommendation. The commission shall conduct its affairs pursuant to Robert's Rules of Order.
As you can see here tonight, what are the 7 of us?
Yeah.
My wife's not here, which would have been 8.
Miss Worley's not here.
Miss Worley's not here, that would have
That's
been 9. To be honest with you, I like the
9-member.
9-member, because that's 9 different opinions about one topic from different parts of the city. Why we would want to limit ourselves? Because we know having 9 members that there's a good possibility that at least, a quarter of them may be sick at any given time.
Right.
And we have to have 5 for a quorum, correct? So I would say we
I'd
leave
leave
it the
alone.
way it is.
I agree.
Yeah.
I would like to make a motion that we leave 10.5, amendment and number of charter review members as is.
I
Second.
You got it? Okay.
Don't let her take it.
You got a second? Roll call, please.
Mr. Rodehaver?
Yes.
Ms. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Ms. Byrd?
Yes.
Mrs. Duff?
Yes,
Mrs. Bond?
Yes.
Mr. Watts?
Yes.
Moving forward on to the next item, section 1012, change title from annual report to comprehensive annual financial report. Okay.
I want to add that this is one of the items that we've sent to Martina for her to
Correct.
take a look at.
Yeah.
I just
Okay.
wanted
We
to
wanted to get rid
Yeah.
of it.
I just wanted to remind you.
Then we'll let this, I'd like to,
We'll all
we'll
review.
just, let them continue to review it.
Okay.
We'll
I
table
just, that was one of the
That's
ones
okay with
that the
everybody
finance
else.
director pointed out, so.
Need a motion
Yeah.
on that? Do you need a motion to table this?
So why so big of a
I don't
name
think so.
change?
Well, and so
Oh,
I'm
Lord.
confused because if he's trying to streamline everything else, why is he wanting to put in a full paragraph
I mean, that's a lot.
for 2 words? I don't know.
His last item that he has on his list, on Aaron's list that he would like to look at, he says it would be nice to have a member of council sit on each board.
I disagree.
No.
I don't see
No.
any reason for that.
I'm sorry that, no, there's time and place for everybody, and there's times when council needs to be completely separate from certain things.
I think if
I
that-
appreciate
if that
Mrs. Witt being here with us.
I do
Oh,
too.
yeah.
You know, and
Absolutely.
having her opinion, that's one thing. But there are other boards and commissions, let's say if Merit Commission were to maintain, council needs, actually, they have no right in Merit Commission.
I don't need it.
Okay?
And I think the boards know that if they want to have a council member present, they would like that.
We'd ask them, we asked Mrs. Witt to stay
Right.
with us.
Right.
You know?
So I think most boards know that they can do that.
I would say that would be a waste of a lot of resources.
I agree.
Right there. I
Now,
really do.
the thing is, the majority of the council members have served on
other
boards
boards.
Right.
Yeah.
prior to
They don't
On the
do it
council,
again.
yeah.
getting on the council. So why would you drag them back into those boards? The boards, to me, are set aside for the voters by the citizens. So that way the citizens have an input outside of council.
And to be quite honest with you, I feel like more of the public should be
And
involved.
I agree.
Totally.
Amen.
I agree.
And good luck with that.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Keep hoping.
I don't know, things are changing, things are changing.
I vote. I vote.
We have a lot of things that are tabled. This is what, our 6th meeting now? We gotta pick another one. I would say,
June 5th.
we are not doing the 29th, that would be Memorial Day.
June 5th.
Um, What are you saying, June
5th.
June 5th?
It's 2 weeks from today.
2 weeks from today gives Martina 2 more weeks then to
Yes.
address these problems that we're having. It is going into a holiday weekend for her as well.
Do
So-
you feel that, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's all right.
Do you feel that that would be sufficient time for her to possibly,
I hope so.
Okay.
When she responded today, I let her know that I would let you all know, and I would get back with her when you had scheduled the next meeting.
okay, because that would give.
So that would kind of give her
total-
a deadline, kind of.
Yeah, it would give kind of a total of a month for her to have looked over this. Okay,
Yes.
I'm good with it.
One other thing, I would like you to, one more time, just one more time, address all department heads. Just one last time and make sure, this is your last call, because if you want to know the truth,
Yeah,
once we
we're
get the
done.
law director stuff back, I believe we're done.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just one more call for if they've got any questions or comments or suggestions they would like us to look at. Everybody good with June the 5th,
June 5th, that Monday.
Monday at 6 o'clock?
Okay.
Sounds good.
Anybody have any questions, comments, suggestions? Looky-sees? No? You sure? Nobody? None?
Sound like an auctioneer now. Going once.
Going once? Going twice? Meeting stands adjourned.
Okay.
Hot dog, less than an hour.
Now, all right.
I just have one